Hey, this is CANDIA Raquel,
Hello,
founder of
Raquel.
Raquel. Yeah, CANDIA Raquel, founder of Centro de Poder. And you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to be to sense your fire, to share the flame. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go to www.centrodepoder.com and get yourself signed up to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox. Today we have a very special guest. This is Alexandros Ioannou from Greece, and he's a physiotherapist. He's a Feldenkrais Method practitioner, and he is also a contact improvisation dancer. It's an honor to have you here, Alexandros.
Thank you, Raquel, for bringing me here. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you.
Yes, and I am very curious about your approach with your clients because you treat people with special neurological challenges, and you have mentioned that touch is so important. So normally we get very few touching from ourselves and like from people in our everyday lives. So I want to ask you, like, why is touch important to be touched, and what difference does it makes in therapy and in life
But
in general?
um, I don't know. Why is touch important? Well, I was thinking the other day that I mean, I feel, or I always felt like the 80% of what I'm doing um, is like it's mostly non-specific work in this area of manipulation. So I would say that 20% is goal-oriented and 20% is technique, let's say, and the 80% is it's not specific. It's just people that need to be touched, and you're giving them that. So it's probably it also has to do with the people. Most of the people that I see that are kind of like Dostoevskian heroes of some kind. They're old, they're frail, they have body ailments, they have esoteric spiritual ailments. Their cognitive status is not that good. So I mean, yeah, I was always challenged by this thought. I mean, what am I trying to give there? And I feel that most of these people, they just want to be in a certain way. They just want to be manipulated by somebody. They want to be touched by somebody. They want to be supported by somebody, and I feel that's um, that's a medication on its own. That's a goal on its own. Because what I'm saying is that all these people have been carrying their weights and have been carrying themselves and have been carrying their responsibility for life, for their body, um, and I've been doing it for 60 or 80 or 90 years, sometimes even more. And what I really long for is just somebody to take a part of this burden, somebody to support them, somebody to move them, somebody to take them out of the responsibility of actually being and doing something. So that's where I feel is my main contribution. Support, support, and this I was also thinking that this sense of support is very it's a very infantile need. It's the way um, newborn babies want to be held, and they're not responsible for anything, and their parents doing everything for them. They're touching them, they're moving them, they're giving them, but also giving them identity through their touch. Yes, so um, most of the time, the babies feel themselves either when they're on the floor or when somebody's touching them. So this first touch um, is giving them a sense of self as well. So this is basically what what most of us that work with the body and touch people, I think that's one of the main illusions that we provide with people. They're supported and they can feel okay, and there's somebody there to help, and they're not alone. And that's I think that's a great medicine.
Yes, yes, to be supported. An infantile need, but perhaps a need that is human or mammal, because you see the wolves cuddling together, like they live in packs and they live in the wilderness and it's very cold and they sleep together. Or cats, they like touch is a very mammal animal thing that
Yes, it is. It
that
is very
perhaps,
primal. It
yeah,
is.
that
Mhm,
perhaps
mhm.
now as civilized humans we've been like educated in that growing up means to be 100% self-reliant, when in actuality this baby need of being supported and being held and being contained and touched continues along a lifetime, because as you express, it's present on people that is 60, 70, 80, 90 and more years old, and how a baby, we learn the sense of touch by being touched, because when we are touched, we we feel ourselves, and it gives a sense of identity, and that takes me to how touch deprived we are as a Western society. We live in the desert of no touch. Even people that may be very wealthy or maybe very poor, like, we are taught actually that not touching it's the appropriate standard of boundaries, and it actually is like, one shouldn't touch anyone or let anyone touch you or get close to you without your consent. But when there's the consent, when there's like the trust, like, why shouldn't we like hug the people that we love and be more touching? And I feel that sometimes this
Uh,
is a misunderstanding of touch as something sexual, exclusively sexual, and the body itself as
uh-huh.
something sexual, because that's what I believe. I think that pleasure has become a product in our society, that we work so hard in order to get pleasure, and I feel that's wrong, and that pleasure can only like be experienced, or the body can only be experienced in a sexual context. And of course, by all means, like, get pleasure in intimacy, and enjoy your body. But I mean, I feel that first and foremost, that's not the case. We are the body. We are the flesh. So, like, well, how do you think? I'm gonna give you a little context. I've been lucky to have some Feldenkrais
Yeah,
sessions,
so yeah.
and sometimes, like, the simple touch, this simple support is all that I needed to reorganize myself and even heal. So but I am not a physiotherapist, an expert as you are. So would you tell us a little bit more about how does this 80% that you do beyond the techniques, that is supporting and touching,
Yeah.
helps the person and the body and the nervous system to get better?
Oh, um, that's the question. Say again. I want to hear the question once again.
Yes. How does this support that you provide, that apparently
Yeah, yeah.
it's very simple, it's touching, how something apparently so simple can be so important in healing and in what is said neuromuscular reorganization? Like, how come something so simple as touch can help you gather your sense of identity?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't know the answer to that. And I obviously don't know the exact mechanism, but it is something, I feel it's something rather obvious. It maybe was made more obvious to me during my Feldenkrais training. But still, the idea of support in general, it's been um, it's been used a lot. It's been used in somatic psychotherapy, um, even in psychotherapy itself, when people are lying on couches. So support, whether it's given by a human hand or whether it's given by is assisted by devices, um, has always been a good way of reducing tone. So I think with Feldenkrais, for example, he was very much intrigued by this idea of muscle tone, and if, for example, muscle tone can be taught, or is it like a fixed thing, or is it kind of, is it is it malleable? Is it changeable? Is it constant? Is it the same for the rest of our lives, or we can actually control it? And if we can control muscle tone, then I guess he was dreaming of something. He had like the idea of I don't know, some kind of a superhuman in his head, Feldenkrais. So I believe that he thought that if we could find the optimal tone for us, and that's like a holy grail, because in general, muscle tone is not something, it's not something permanent, it changes. It changes in very interesting ways, but it's never the same. So yeah, Feldenkrais was actually thinking about this optimal muscle tone for everybody, and he thought that if we could acquire that, if we could acquire this state, then probably many degrees of freedom, as to say, many variables that have to do with our movement or our not only with our emotional state, for example, with our behavioral flexibilities, that all these could be unleashed. So we could be experiencing less pain, we could be more able to, I don't know, to indulge in a variety of activities in different environments, um, be able to challenge ourselves in time and in space, doing sports or living truly amazing lives or doing whatever destiny has written for us.
Whatever.
That was the idea. That was the idea of Feldenkrais, and he was. This is yeah. He had this idea of degrees of freedom, the degrees of freedom, uh, in his head, but he never really mentions this term. Also, although it was a term of his era and of his own profession.
the degrees of freedom.
Anyhow, yes, and one of the reasons he was not using, yes, one of the reasons he was not using this term, degrees of freedoms, probably because he wanted to hide in a way the guy with the most inspiration from, who was actually using this term a lot. And this was Nikolai Bernstein. I don't know if you've heard Nikolai
Nic-
Bernstein.
Nikolai
You have?
Bernstein.
No.
Tell us about degrees of freedom,
Yes, he was.
Bernstein, and dexterity, because I tell you why it's so important, this concept of degrees of freedom, muscular tone, and dexterity, because we live
Uh-huh.
in a Western world that educated most of us to work hard under the premise of no pain, no gain, high productivity, and wear your
Uh-huh.
burnout as a trophy of honor, and try to strive on on the martyrdom of endurance, which is actually the formula not for success,
Okay.
but the formula for self-destruction. So the way to achieve more, it's not even through the forceful willpower, but instead via the optimal organization that actually looks more like effortlessness and has the quality of elegance that we
Okay.
actually see in high performers. So I believe that it's key, this concept of
But yes, but in order for the performer, in order for the performer to perform in the way you see him or her, he has to go through a lot of pain. Yes, he will not get there by probably by doing Feldenkrais only. Um,
only
he will have to, yeah, he will have to, I don't know, to challenge him or herself in extremes, and just go for it. And then I don't believe in general Feldenkrais was against effort. It's a nice motto, but I'm not 100% for it.
tell us more.
I enjoy. It's like, what?
Yeah, tell us more.
Sorry, say again.
Tell us more about effort. And what I mean is the difference between an effort that is mindful, that is an effort that is run through awareness, versus just the effort of brute force and working with in a way that leads to injury. Like where's the subtle difference between an effort that actually builds you a body and muscle mass? I mean, you need to make good effort to get muscles to carry yourself, but it's not the same kind of effort
Okay.
that will lead you to break a joint or to burn out. So what makes the difference?
What makes the difference? Um, I don't know. I'm lately getting loads of ideas. I had an accident last year, like a year ago or something, and after that I had to stay a lot in bed. I had to stay for 4 months, being more or less mobilized. Um, and it took me some time after I got up and I started walking and I started doing stuff. It took me some time till I started to do something quasi dynamic for my body. So after these 4 months, another month passed, and after that, I started doing sports. I started doing yoga that I hadn't done much before in my life. I also did, and I still do. I do handstand lesson, and I feel that there was a lot to learn from this experience, especially from the handstand lesson, where you actually learn to do something that's very strange for the body. It's very strange muscularly, perceptually, having your head down and trying to balance there. And then I was kind of like, yes, I was starting to learn this thing from, let's say not zero, but a little bit after zero. And I've been monitoring this progress of how things are falling apart, how one exercise complements another exercise. Um, and yes, and what I re-encountered just learning this new skill is that especially in the beginning there's more effort, especially when you're learning something that's new. There's more effort, and I really enjoyed this process of gradually improving my technique, because there's a technique there. There's a way things have to be done, 1, 2, 3, and this progress, this from scratch and from real effort to improving your coordination, improving your technique, and having it done all with less effort. That has really been that has been really a nice journey for me. Um, but I really do believe that coordination, strength, they can actually be together, and you can be actually very strong and be very elastic at the same time, be very flexible, and uh, actually, I've seen many people who can be very flexible in their bodies, but their thinking is not that flexible. So I guess you can have all the possible combinations. But I feel that in modern era, people are trying to find, even in this fitness industry, well, let's say, they're trying to find some sort of a balance between strength, between flexibility, uh, and I think they're asking for everything. They want both if they can have it.
if they
So
have it.
in my era, I don't know, during the 90s or the 80s or something, you could see many people being one or the other, either very, very muscular but not flexible, or very flexible but not muscular enough. So now you can see basically everything, and it's a nice thing.
It's nice thing. It's more
People can be everything. People can be everything, and I know. Yes, yes. I'm telling you all this because I don't know, because but my thinking starts from the Feldenkrais method itself, and I think that one of the things that was going around Feldenkrais' head, and not only his, is whether we can substitute coordination for muscle power. Can you make somebody uh, so good coordinated that he doesn't need muscle at all?
that would be like
That was a question.
octopus.
That was a question.
That was the question.
What?
Like an
Only
octopus,
a moving noodle. Yes, a moving noodle.
a moving noodle. But is it?
Yes, but these are kind a moving noodle.
But then imagine a very muscular body
Yes, but
that has
this is the
coordination.
way.
For example, if you see Bruce Lee, the kung fu fighter,
Yes,
I mean, he had muscles, even the mini
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
girls had like great tone. So he somehow had everything, which leads me to ask you about the connection of pleasure, dexterity, and muscle tone.
Uh-huh.
Aha,
What
aha.
about it? Say
What
again,
about
please.
it? I am
That's a,
starting. I am starting to suspect that if you have that magic combo of having muscle, like you have built some flesh in yourself, but these muscles are
yes.
coordinated, so your nervous system is involved. Will your experience be more pleasurable? Have you seen that in your clients, in your work? Than ple- have you seen a connection of pleasure with muscle tone and coordination? I am gonna give you an example. I work a lot in the computer, and sometimes I have bad
Yes, give me
computer,
an example, please, please.
and I have a lot of and, and
Sorry, sorry.
so yeah, and so I can 100%
Sorry, I
relate
couldn't hear.
the bad muscle tone of my almost contracture shoulders to no pleasure. But then if my muscle tone is too low, I don't feel much. So is, is is there like a degree of muscle tone where where you can like find pleasure? Like, can you give us the location of pleasure in muscular tone terms and in coordination? Is that possible?
Ah, ah. Creating a map, you mean? Creating a map of
Create,
some sort.
like,
I don't know. You're talking about all the pleasure thing. Yeah. Hey, you're talking about all this pleasure thing, and obviously, Feldenkrais method comes from it comes from a category of methods like body psychotherapy and Reichian approaches by Wilhelm Reich.
mhm.
That I think they were all more or less looking for what was optimal tone and how this optimal tone can affect the mobility of the thorax, and if there's a tone that can actually be as good as to allow for your defenses to whatever those defenses are to fall apart, and with a main goal basically of having better orgasms.
With the main of having better orgasms. That's fantastic. But
Yes, the main idea in Reichian, yes, the main idea of Reichian approach here is, yeah, it's somehow to allow the people to experience a full orgasmic thing.
oh, I
And
didn't
yeah,
know.
and Feldenkrais, yeah, he comes from the same kind of. You didn't know that.
No,
No, and you
tell,
can see, yeah, this.
tell me
No,
everything.
no, I don't know much. I don't know much. Tell me about orgasms. I don't know. It is a constant, not a constant, but he writes a lot about that, about Feldenkrais writes a lot about sex and how it's all connected, and gravity, uh, ability to fulfill sexual destiny of some sort, or meaning that, I guess, meaning that having full orgasms is what the society needs. He's
Her,
a, he's one of he's in a way one of these scholars. I mean, because I don't know many I mean, if you think that many psychotherapists, I mean Freud and
yes, Freud,
Jung and after that
Lacan,
Reich,
yes.
yes, yes, they all worked. They all worked with people, either men or women with sexual dysfunction. So Feldenkrais, yeah, he obviously worked with such people as well. he doesn't mention it somewhere, but I'm sure that because he got visited by all kinds of people, all kinds of ailments, psychological, somatic, old age, neurological. Okay, he saw a lot of people with orgasmic difficulties, and he was intrigued by how can I help, what can I do. Um, Interesting.
Yes,
But
and
he doesn't. But Feldenkrais, he was a funny guy.
yeah,
Feldenkrais is a funny guy. He was not. I was writing some sort of an article, or I don't know, some kind of a text on um, on the Facebook page for the Feldenkrais practitioners around the world, and I was saying that Feldenkrais, he was a weirdo in a way, in the sense that he actually talked and wrote and write mostly to hide things and not to explain, not to clarify. He mostly did the speaking and the writing in order to create a mist around himself, around his method, around how he got around his method. You can see that, yes.
he writes about,
But we need all kinds of people in the society.
yeah, and there's a book from Moshe
What?
Feldenkrais that is called Body and Mature Behavior, and there's a full chapter about sex, and he describes orgasm, mainly masculine orgasm. And I want to ask you about the most muscular tone and contractions related to orgasm with my particular sad story that, look, I got a very hard injury in my psoas muscle because I fell from the stairs, and the
Okay.
a section of the upper thoracic 12 and lumbar 1, a segment of big segment of muscular fiber
Uh-huh.
detached. So it was not like an abrasive fracture, but it was a muscular fracture, and that was in
O-
2014. So I don't know the exact
Okay.
connection of the psoas and orgasm and the orgasm mechanisms, but in my experience, it plays a role in the transmission of the wave of the trembling of the orgasm along the spine.
Uh-huh.
But I have
Okay.
the bad experience that sometimes if the tension goes wrong, like, I mean, when you are in intimacy, even if you are with yourself, like having solo sex, just masturbating, like if I get like in a